Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the second Cuttlefish virtual poetry reading. I'm glad to have you here. My name is Joshua Gage, and I'll once again be your host for this event. Once again, I've invited 5 poets to read a poem that they wrote on a particular theme. Then I assigned them a second theme and asked them to record a video of them reading a poem by somebody else on that theme. The whole purpose of this reading series is to promote poetry. All the poets in this reading are published authors with books that you can purchase, and I've included their various links in the video description. So I encourage you to go to their homepage or your local bookstore and buy all the poetry that you can. The first theme that I assigned poets for this reading is community. Most of us are isolated in coronavirus quarantine, and those communities which we belong to are suffering. Obviously, I want this reading series to be a community of poets, but I also think poets can inspire us to think about community and the potential for communities in other ways. Our first poet is Kari Gunter-Seymour. Kari Gunter-Seymour is a 9th generation Appalachian and the founder and the executive director of the Women of Appalachia Project. She is the editor of the Women Speak anthology series and Essentially Athens Online. A retired English instructor in the E.W. Scripps School of Journalism at Ohio University and Athens, Ohio Poet Laureate Emeritus. Her work can be found in many publications, including Still, Rattle, Crab Orchard Review, Main Street Rag, Stirring, the American Journal of Poetry, and the LA Times. A poem she wrote in support of families living in poverty in Athens County, Ohio, went viral and was seen by over 100,000 people, resulting in thousands of dollars donated to her local food pantry. Our first poet is Kari Gunter-Seymour.
Hello, my name is Kari Gunter-Seymour, and I am an Appalachian poet from southeastern Ohio. My piece is called Perfect Pitch. I rode middle school bound backseat of my aunt's station wagon, listening to her and Mama sing Jolene, trading off verses, harmonizing on the chorus. I'm begging of you, please don't take my man. A few years later, it was 9 to 5. They were fired up, and it was Dolly's doing. This was rural Ohio, the bottom lip of northern Appalachia, right shy of Perry Como country. The women in my family worked the TS Trim factory, spitting out Honda car parts. Started out on the assembly line, worked their way up to detailing, paint, then welding. The physical labor made their bodies strong, their future bright, and like Dolly, they weren't taking any shit. They learned early on about strikes and picket lines, how important it was to organize and vote. Brave women in the workforce, determined to see their daughters in college classrooms the hell out of Factory Row. I didn't know then I was being raised by a feminist, working to take back her power. Like Dolly, my mama never would use that word, no matter how much she embodied it. She was proud to hang up her helmet, end of shift, pick up her paycheck, sing in the front seat of a station wagon with the women she loved. Thank you.
Our next poet, Nebula-nominated Beth Cato, is the author of the Clockwork Dagger duology and the Blood of Earth trilogy from Harper Voyager. Her short story and poetry collection, Red Dust and Dancing Horses and Other Stories, is available from major retailers and Fairwood Press. She is a Hannaford, California native transplanted to the Arizona desert, where she lives with her husband, son, and resident cats.
Hello, my name is Beth Cato. On the theme of community, I'm reading my poem Wayfaring King, which was published in Starline several years ago and was a Rhysling nominee. Wayfaring King. This one time, my dad found a ghost just wandering around in the Mississippi woods. When we all gathered to see it, the ghost started to sing. That's when my parents realized this was Elvis. I didn't know who he was, really. I mean, he died long before I was even born. But when he sang, wow. Even the birds went quiet, then joined in like backup singers. All we could do was stare and sob as he sang song after song. Then he gave a spectral bow, said, thank you very much, and wandered on. When my mom could speak again, she said it was a shame no technology would really record ghosts because he sounded like his younger self and so much more. But Dad said no, recordings couldn't do him justice anyway. Now whenever I hear Elvis's voice in some commercial or maybe on the radio at Christmas, I sob. I wonder if he still wanders and stops to sing for random folks. Some ghosts, see, they're lost and in search of some place or person to grant them eternal peace. But him, I think his wayfaring and singing, maybe that is his kind of heaven. Thank you for listening.
Our third poet is Wendy Van Camp. Wendy Van Camp is the author and poet behind No Wasted Ink, a blog about the craft of writing that features author interviews, sci-fi and fantasy book reviews, and poetry. Wendy's short stories and poems have appeared in literary and science fiction magazines such as Lit Up, Sci-Fi Quest, Quantum Visions, and Far Horizons. Her books are a Regency historical entitled The Curate's Brother, a Jane Austen variation of Persuasion, and also The Planets, a sci-fi coup poetry collection, which is nominated for an Elgin Award. She has won honorable mention at Writers of the Future and is a graduate of the James Gunn Speculative Fiction Workshop.
Hello, my name is Wendy Van Camp, and I'm an author and poet. Today I'm going to be reading to you some poetry about community. Being a speculative poet, my sci-fi coup poems are about a community of robots, so I hope you'll enjoy them. The first one is called KIC 8462853. This is a name of a star, also known as Tabby Star. 1,500 light years, human warp drive propels ship. Odd pulses promise life. The next one is called Dyson Swarm. Hold my place forever. Lonely swarm of graphene sails. Wireless energy transfer. The third poem is called Dyson Ring. One by one we encircle, stalactites self-replicating ring, star energy captured. The final poem of this sci-fi coup set is called Abandoned Sphere. Lack of radiation, dead stalactites enclose alien star. We claim all salvage rights.
Our fourth poet is a near and dear friend. When I came back to Cleveland after living in New York for my undergrad, his Deep Cleveland Poetry Hour was one of the first reading series that welcomed me in as a poet and helped to introduce me to the thriving poetry scene in Northeast Ohio. Mark Kuhar is a writer, poet, editor, publisher, artist, and songwriter. His poetry, fiction, and nonfiction have appeared in many print and online journals. He has published 4 chapbooks of poetry, Acrobats in Catapult Twist, Laughing in the Ruins of Chippewa Lake Park, East 40th and Pain, Poems from Deep Cleveland, and Mercury in Retrograde. He is the founder of Deep Cleveland LLC, a literary, entertainment, and educational venture designed to perpetuate post-industrial literacy, culture, and other types of cosmic enterprise in the service of the arts. He lives in Medina, Ohio, with his wife and 3 children. He holds a BA in English with a specialization in creative writing from Ohio University.
On rural streets where I grew up, everyone knew everyone. If you were out past dinner, someone's mom would chase you home. If you were caught with firecrackers or throwing stones, another kid's dad would yell like your own dad. If you fell and skinned your knee, someone bandaged it. If you felt alone, there was a shoulder to cry on. If the sky was blue and the sun was out, someone always noted, it was such a nice day. The ladies all knew who was sleeping with who. If the guy in the corner was drinking too much whiskey, or strange cars were coming and going at the house around the corner. There were no secrets, and life was an open book, for better or for worse. When someone was sick, chicken soup showed up at their house. If someone's granddad died, every neighbor brought a covered dish and sat around the living room telling stories. In the next town over, it was the same. And the next town down the road, identical. 10 miles later, it was that all over again. When I finally left, as young men do, one of the old ladies at church said, "Don't be a stranger." I said I never would. And when I finally came back, I wasn't.
Our final poet for the reading is Jacqueline West, who is the author of the New York Times best-selling middle grade series, The Books of Elsewhere, the Schneider Family Honor Book, The Collectors, and several other middle grade and young adult novels. Her most recent novel, the YA horror fantasy Last Things, is a finalist for the Minnesota Book Awards and was selected for the Bram Stoker Award preliminary ballot. Her poetry has appeared in journals including Mythic Delirium, Strange Horizons, Goblin Fruit, Liminality, and Starline, and has been nominated for the Riesling Award and Pushcart Award. She has received a Dorothy Sargent Rosenberg Prize. Her first full-length poetry collection, Candle and Pins, Poems on Superstitions, was published by Alban Lake in 2018 and was selected for the preliminary ballot of the Bram Stoker Awards. Jacqueline lives with her family in Red Wing, Minnesota.
Hi, I am Jacqueline West, and I'm going to be reading the poem Colonist's Churchyard, which is from my 2018 collection Candle and Pins, Poems on Superstitions, which was published by Alban Lake. It's kind of a dark take on the community theme, but there you go. Colonist's Churchyard. The first to be buried in a new graveyard is a tithe to the evil one. It may be a shame to put you here alone. The first stone, unobtrusive, bedded deep in the grass, nothing carved on its face but the year. No one knows when your life began or where, only that it ended here, down a fresh cleared road, among strangers, in a house that no one shared. Maybe the stories were unfair, the tales exaggerated, your fondness for black cats, your mutterings in an unfamiliar language, the way herb gardens and unfurling roses would slack into wrinkles when you passed by. Perhaps the company you kept is not what will keep you now, what will bring you into its shadowy folds, underneath its wide black wings. Who can say? We have nothing but our own ways, the surety that one of us will be next to take a bed in the fresh green yard, next to close our eyes on the faces of friends and family, all those who will vouch for our good names, and carve them here, clean and sharp, for all to see.
Thank you to all of our readers for sharing their poems with us. Thank you again to Robert McLeod for his wonderful composition, Senbazuru, which is royalty free, so we can use it and share it with you as our theme song. On to the second portion of our reading. The theme for the second half of the reading, where our readers have to read a poem by another poet, is kindness. Obviously, if we are going to sustain our communities throughout this quarantine, we need to offer whatever gestures of kindness we can. There's a lot we can do for each other, especially in isolation. I know that the fear and doubt of this quarantine can get to us and force us to focus on ourselves, but one way to beat back that negativity is to reach out with kindness to others. I hope these poems encourage you to do just that.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline West, and for the theme of kindness, I'm going to be reading Sylvia Plath's poem, Kindness, from her collection Ariel, which is one of my favorite Plath poems. Kindness. Kindness glides about my house. Dame Kindness, she is so nice. The blue and red jewels of her rings smoke in the windows, the mirrors are filling with smiles. What is so real as the cry of a child? A rabbit's cry may be wilder, but it has no soul. Sugar can cure everything, so kindness says. Sugar is a necessary fluid, its crystals a little poultice. Oh, kindness, kindness, sweetly picking up pieces. My Japanese silks, desperate butterflies, may be pinned any minute, anesthetized. And here you come, with a cup of tea, wreathed in steam. The blood jet is poetry. There is no stopping it. You hand me 2 children, 2 roses.
As you may or may not know, Cleveland's venerable poet laureate Daniel Thompson used to get day-old bread and drive around the city and deliver it to homeless people. This is Daniel Thompson's poem, The Bread Man. Night is the future I drive in the middle of, under the weather of moonlight, under the charity of darkness. With Godspeed, I drive through the scarred wilderness, the rudderal loneliness, as if I were heaven's messenger and had the divine right of way. Across avenues of bad news to these streets of greed, night is the future for the fugitives of day, who lay with their heads down where their feet have trod, and hold in rough hands this day-old daily bread. In a prison without walls, under stars they seldom see, night is the future, a dream of a blind date. Our faith arranges between justice and love, under the weather of moonlight, under the charity of darkness.
Hello, my name is Wendy Van Camp, and I'm going to be reading to you a poem by Naomi Shihab Nye, which is entitled Kindness. Before you know what kindness really is, you must lose things. Feel the future dissolve in a moment like salt in a weakened broth. What you held in your hand, what you counted and carefully saved, all this must go, so you know how desolate the landscape can be between the regions of kindness. How you ride and ride, thinking the bus will never stop. The passengers eating maize and chicken will stare out the window forever. Before you learn the tender gravity of kindness, you must travel where the Indian in a white poncho lies dead by the side of the road. You must see how this could be you, how he too was someone who journeyed through the night with plans and the simple breath that kept him alive. Before you know kindness as the deepest thing inside, you must know sorrow as the other deepest thing. You must wake up with sorrow. You must speak to it till your voice catches the thread of all sorrows and you see the size of the cloth. Then it is only kindness that makes sense anymore. Only kindness that ties your shoes and sends you out into the day to gaze at bread. Only kindness that raises its head from the crowd of the world to say, "It is I you have been looking for," and then goes with you everywhere, like a shadow or a friend.
I'm Beth Cato. On the theme of kindness, I went and I found a classic poem by one of my favorite poets, Christina Rossetti, who's most famous for writing Goblin Market. But I like this one. It's short and sweet, and it is full of kindness. The Dear Old Woman in the Lane by Christina Rossetti. The dear old woman in the lane is sick and sore with pains and aches. We'll go to her this afternoon and take her tea and eggs and cakes. We'll stop to make the kettle boil and brew some tea and set the tray and poach an egg and toast a cake and wheel her chair around if we may. Thank you very much for listening.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kari Gunter-Seymour, and I'm an Appalachian poet from southeastern Ohio. I'm here today to read a poem about kindness. And so when I started thinking about a poem that I might choose from another poet about kindness, the person that first came to my mind was Wendell Berry. And I'm really excited to share this poem with you from such an incredible poet and such a compassionate person. So this poem is called If We Have No Compassion. If we have become a people incapable of thought, then the brute thought of mere power and mere greed will think for us. If we have become incapable of denying ourselves anything, then all that we have will be taken from us. If we have no compassion, we will suffer alone. We will suffer alone the destruction of ourselves. These are merely the laws of this world, as known to Shakespeare, as known to Milton. When we cease from human thought, a low and effective cunning stirs in the most inhuman minds.
Thank you again to Beth Cato, Kari Gunter-Seymour, Mark Kuhar, Wendy Van Camp, and Jacqueline West. Again, please check out the description of this video for links to these poets and their work, and please order their work directly from them or from your local bookstore if at all possible. Thank you all for joining us again for the Cuttlefish Virtual Poetry Reading. We'll see you next time. Please be safe, healthy until then. Thus endeth the lesson.